Okay, that's on. That's for our YouTube listeners.
Hey, YouTube.
YouTube, hello. Andy Carbone, welcome to the Regenerative Journey, and welcome to the. It's been a bit of a regular studio now. The veranda of the farmhouse here at the farm at Byron Bay.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
You mightn't be thanking me at the end of this, mate. I'm gonna hit you up with the. I interviewed Damon Gammo on this very spot about it'll be more than 12 months ago now, and I hit him up with the straight up question, the hard ones. You started alongside Damon in How's That?
Yes.
The amazingly successful Australian mini-series about the cricket and the one dayers.
Yes, I did.
And you played Max Walker.
Yes, I played Max Walker.
Was that your real mustache? Because the one you're sporting now is pretty good.
Yeah, look, they had to paint a little bit in. I was a little bit younger then, so they actually did use a bit of marker to sort of...
Did they?
Yeah, fix up the gaps, yeah.
You had a bit of bum fluff.
I had a little bit of bum fluff. Oh, come on. Yeah, no, it was probably a little bit of bum fluff. And I had to do a bit of extra work, yeah.
Mate, how did you score that gig?
Well, I was an actor. Yeah, so
we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, so yeah, it was pretty fun. It was a very fun show. It was good. It was
good crew.
Very good crew. Yeah. Look, we got to play 70s cricket players, and I kind of lived it a little bit as well, like off camera and things like that. It was.
What do you mean? Like, because I know they used to drink a bit of grog. They loved their beers. Did you do like the
method?
You sunk your method acting. You really sunk yourself into that.
There was one, not naming any names, but there was one guy who was told by the director to lose a bit of weight, and then he actually told us all that he'd been eating chicken schnitzels every night.
Because he was method acting.
Yeah, he was just having way too much fun. So we weren't in pubs that much. Yeah.
Your mate didn't need to be. Yeah. Now, talking about pubs, we aren't at one right now. We are at the farm at Byron Bay, and I probably should have moved my wagon a bit further away so we can see more of it. But, mate, what does it mean for you to be here in this spot? Not necessarily talking to me, but just here at the farm at Byron Bay, looking out there. I mean, what are you seeing? What are you feeling when you're here?
Yeah, look, I just see great opportunity here. You know, I see great opportunity to educate sort of the wider community. You know, a lot of people who probably don't understand a lot about farming or food or where good food comes from. I see a lot of hard work that's gone into this place already, and you know, a lot of good people who are very passionate sort of got it to this place to where it is now. And I feel really fortunate to have the opportunity to try and sort of build on what's been done here and move forward and value add, I suppose, to the good work that's been done. I also see great opportunity to educate people in a number of different areas on this place. So we have got the livestock, animal integration here, and then we've also got some really good market gardeners here, and then we've got the macadamia orchard and stuff like that. So there's an opportunity to sort of rejig some of the things that are going on here and actually create a good sort of educational program here to the public.
Because what it is, for those who haven't been here and haven't heard me bang on about it before, it's 80 something acres, market gardeners. There's chickens, there's pigs, there's cattle. There is, as Andy said, the macadamia orchard, and it's sort of a bit of a mix of tenants and some of the livestock's owned by the owner, and it's 6 years old. Changed hands last year, and it's fantastic. Suffering a bit now, obviously, with the lockdowns and all that sort of caper. But it's a wonderful place.
Mm. Yeah, it's just great for people to actually see where their food's coming from, and then actually sort of taste some of it in the restaurant and things like that. So And there's a lot of passion here. You know, there's a lot of passionate people. There's a lot of people who are looking to, you know, really like manage their land or look after their land or caretake their land the best they can. So it's a really kind of inspiring place to work and be.
And there's not many of places like this around, is there? Like, it's quite unique, I think. You know, in its context and what it's actually doing. There's places that are maybe a bit more urban places that have got a chicken or two and some carrots growing, but you know, in terms of, and this is not a 5,000 acre farm by any means, and you know, 2 hours from the coast. This is in a pretty unique spot.
Definitely, and I think the new owners definitely see the potential in that and see the potential to actually expand. And when I came on board here, we really spoke about trying to create a showroom floor for what regenerative ag is and what it can be and what you can actually do on small farming, you know, small plots as well as, you know, on a larger scale. So.
And how long have you been? When did you start here?
November, December last year. Yeah.
Mate, let's so it's a bloody good spot to be sitting, I have to say. That's why I enjoy doing it. Out here, we've actually you've got a wonderful flock of bin chooks over there.
Yeah.
When do we get to see them on the menu?
I don't know, but they're the pride of the place, really.
They're hard to fatten though, aren't they?
They're hard to catch too. Oh, well, yeah.
That's another story. I'm not sure we're going to go there. I can see some pigs over there though, so they
hang out.
There's animal integration going on.
Yeah. Actually, my cousin's husband, he's a turf farmer, and whenever he sees ibis around in his property, it actually tells him that he's got a certain grub in the ground. So
is it the cockchafer? Don't laugh. It's the name of it. It's the name of a grub.
I don't know. I think that's definitely your realm, right?
I didn't make it up. Anyone who knows their pasture pests will know about the cockchafer. Yeah. Maybe they're after them. Mate, let's get into, before we go down into the lavatory too far, tell us, as is the name of the podcast, Andy, the Regenerative Journey. I'm keen to understand, because I know bits and pieces of it, more about your regenerative journey. How far back do you want to go? Like, you know, I don't know, day one, day 5,000, you know, where, just at least paint a picture of your when you were a young fella.
Yeah, okay. So, my mum, on my mum's side of the family, she's, they go back to kind of first European settlers in central Queensland. And they
18 something.
I got no idea, but you know, they were around. They've been, I think it's like six generations or something like that.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, they around the Drummond Range, so they sort of settled around that, which is just sort of west of Emerald.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
In between Emerald and Alpha.
Yep.
And then my mum married, obviously my dad, who is Italian and was born in Italy and came over when he was 5 years old after World War II.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so he came over. My grandfather on my dad's side, he fought for Italy in World War II and was a prisoner of war in South Africa and stuff like that. They owned property, they owned a farm, like a little farm up in the hills behind Salerno, and they just couldn't make it work, so they decided to come to Australia. The whole family went everywhere. Some went to Argentina, New York, and then, you know, my grandfather came to Australia and then sort of settled around the Glasshouse Mountains up there.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother, she comes from a long line of beekeepers. So
that's cool.
Yeah, on my dad's side. So
beekeeping, where was that happening?
In Italy.
Really?
Yeah. So they were, I think they were like 6 or 4 generation beekeepers. So up in the hills.
You don't think about beekeeping as being, well, I guess there are. I do know some people that sort of father and son, but wow, it's Italian beekeeping dynasty there.
Yeah, and they sort of settled in Brisbane, so in around New Farm, and sort of like 15 years ago, she saw a swarm of bees in the sky. She walked inside and got 2 pots together and started smacking them together and disorientated the bees, and they came down and sat and swarmed down there, and we had bees in the middle of Brisbane.
Really? I've never heard that technique before.
Yeah.
Bang,
yeah.
bang, bang.
Yeah,
And then they settle.
Yeah, and they settle, and then they got a hive, and we had bees in the middle of Brisbane at her place.
That's awesome. Did you know that she was a bee whisperer back then?
I didn't.
Then?
No,
She's going, what's she doing, the mad duck with the pans?
Well, I can't actually understand probably because I can't speak Italian.
Wow.
So that was my mum and my dad, and then when I was sort of younger, they split and went their own separate ways, and mum sort of moved back to Central Queensland and remarried and sort of got back into the farming world there, and sort of my stepfather, he was a grazier and had some land and sort of built on that, and so that's where it all started, for me, on the land.
Before we go any further, do you have any socks on, mate?
Yes, I do.
Do you want to take one of them off and put it on your microphone?
Okay.
You wouldn't want me to put mine on yours, and I don't want one of yours on mine.
You sure?
I'm not sure which is going to be.
This is
worse.
great. Okay.
There we are. She's got a bit of a whistle there. That's better.
I brought my bamboo ones back.
There you go. Good work. Yeah, it should be. It'll just take that whistle out of it. So Central Queensland as a young tacker.
Yep.
How was that? What was life like on a property out there?
We lived in town for a while first, while we were developing the property. So we bought 17,000 acres, sort of just north of Emerald. It was quite a rough block back then, and we did a lot of development, a lot of pulling land and country and stuff like that. But back to the question, it was great. I just I got to ride horses, motorbikes, had a fair bit of freedom.
Mustering cattle.
Yeah.
Would be all cattle up there.
It was all cattle, yeah. We had a little bit of farming, and David's family came from sort of wheat growers and stuff like that as well, and then he kind of transitioned into beef cattle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then what happened then? So lovely, country upbringing in the middle of Queensland.
Went to boarding school. Spent 5 years at boarding school.
Brizzy.
Yep, in Brisbane.
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 For those international listeners.
And then finished school, and then went mustering. Went sort of out into the Channel Country, sort of around Longreach, and started working on work for AACO out there. It was mainly just a sort of growing out block, so they used to get a lot of cattle from the northern blocks, truck them down to us. We were on the Diamantina, and then we'd get them to a certain weight before we'd send them off to the feedlot, sort of around Emerald. So that was the first property after school, yeah.
And why that? I mean, it kind of might be an obvious question because you just making sure my dog's still there. Obvious question because it was what you did. Yeah, he's still there.
You still there?
Yeah. But did you have the sort of the thinking? I'm from farming. I wanted to go do something different, or was it like the natural thing? I'm just going to go out there and go further out west.
My grandfather on my mum's side used to manage properties in the territory and stuff. So he managed an outstation for Limbunya, which was called Wave Hill.
Oh yeah.
Back in the sort of 70s, 60s, 70s, sort of around the whole Gurindji sort of stuff going on then. And my grandmother used to tell me a lot of stories about sort of, I initially wanted to go up into the territory, but I couldn't get up there, so then I ended up going to the channels. But it was just a lot of the history and the stories of the driving teams. Read a lot of books, like Hell West and Crooked with Tom Cole and stuff like that. That got me really interested in all that kind of stuff. I think I just really wanted to go chase buffalo or something.
It's a fantastic photo. For those who haven't read the book, we'll put it in the show notes. Hell West and Crooked, and there's a fantastic photo. It's on the front, depends on what version, and he's got a buffalo fair up his ass. He's on a horse.
Yeah.
And he's leaning back with probably a 308 or a 303 or something.
Yep.
And it's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's chasing him, and he's just about to, because that's how he used to drop them, sort of like in the paddock. It was like he'd get them to chase him so he'd get a clean shot.
On the head.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so I read all of those books through high school as well. It got me really interested in it, and I just loved Sid Kidman and all the stories you heard about sort of driving from sort of Camel Wheel south and stuff like that. So and I loved horses and I loved mustering, so it was kind of what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So a year of that or two, or what did you do?
I did sort of nearly 4 years of that. So I did a year down in the Channel Country, and then I went up to the Gulf and I worked up there for 2 years on a place just north of, in between Julia Creek and Normanton,
Yeah.
which was a big breeding block. A lot of Brahman cattle, and yeah, they were, it was really good mustering, good fun up there. And then I went home after that. So I ended up on a sort of a stud. There's a property sort of down around Springshaw, which was the stud for a lot of the AA bulls that went up north.
Oh, yeah. What was that place?
I can't remember the name. I've lost it. Yeah, I can't. It feels a bit weird just having one shoe on.
It does. I want to take that off. Because I know a bit spooky you are about that. One shoe might feel a bit lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and then I went there, and then I was at a point where I was working at this property. I was like, I'm in the area. I'm back home. I'm working at this property. I might as well just go home and work on my home, like family property, and also ride my own horses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then I went home and I went contract mustering for 2 years on my own type thing around central Queensland, just mustering for people.
So you were what age? 24, 25?
I was 20, so 22, 23, yeah, 24, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Saw some really bad droughts around that time as well.
Yeah.
It sort of, I was really in line to sort of run the family farm, take over, and I felt really certain that was my calling, that was the road I was going to go down. And then just some really bad droughts, 2002, around that time, and I got spooked by it all. I just kind of found it really, really tough. I saw the impact it had on my stepdad, who I was extremely close with, on my mum, on the family, on the livestock, on the land, and I just had to get away. I just sort of had to move on, and I went and auditioned for drama school.
Really? Before we get there, so that's because that's probably not an uncommon thing, is it? I think that, I often hear people, they just don't want the life, and it's kind of crazy because you think it's quite romantic, and for those who aren't farming, you think, oh, why would you leave that? And it sounds all beautiful, but it can really be very, not debilitating, but just, it can just push people away. So I saw my mum and dad and how they were. I saw the land, and that's not my future. Which is kind of. I mean, we might get to it, but I'm a firm believer in it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be. The dry period doesn't have to have the impact on a person and a property and a business that it has. And this is not being critical of anyone. If I'm being critical, it's of myself, because if I had kids when I was much younger, I'm sure they wouldn't want to hang around either.
Yeah, and I think sort of coming out of the 90s, I think it was a tough time as well financially for us, because we'd sort of got a massive loan. We had really high interest rates still from the 90s type thing, and a lot of pressure on that, and it was just the melting pot for things to happen. And then I just decided I just needed to get away, and I had a mate sort of who was living in Brisbane at the time, and just sort of said, look, let's just come down here. And also I had all my Italian family in Brisbane as well that I sort of hadn't spent much time with. So.
And what was it? Drama? What was it? Arts degree or something, was it?
No, it was a fine arts degree, in acting. So
why that of all things?
I love film.
Yeah.
I love movies. I love the storytelling aspect of it, I think, and I feel like acting was the easiest sort of way into that world for me at that point in time. I think it was the only way. I'd actually never done drama at school. I hadn't acted before. I'd never acted. I just sort of went and auditioned. I thought it was fun. and then
So did you have to audition for the course?
yeah. So
Really?
I had to audition for the course.
And then when you hand in your CV, and they're going, oh, and Carbone's up next. And they're going, oh, it's a blank bit of paper.
Charlie, I grabbed 2 monologues. I didn't even know what a monologue was, and I grabbed 2 off the internet. And I don't know, I just grabbed these off the internet, and they're like, oh, that's great, because we listen to 1,000, Romeos or Juliets a day. So
Oh, so yours are just so totally off the cuff, like as in they'd never heard of before. It was like they were pleased that you'd been quite novel in your approach.
Oh, here we go.
Can you remember what they were?
No, got no idea. I think one was a jewel thief, and he was nervous about something, and which played really nicely into the audition piece, because I went in there and I didn't know the lines. I was like, oh.
So you were naturally nervous, which was...
Oh, but I wasn't at this point. I was really cocky, and I just handed them a piece of paper and said, I don't really know my lines, so can you just sort of say line? And they did it, and then they absolutely chewed me a new one. They just said, you are wasting our time. You cannot come in here unprepared like this. We've got, we're seeing X amount of people a day, and you've just wasted our time. And I got so nervous, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. And then they said, do it again. And I did it nervous like that, and it was exactly what it needed, that piece. So
wow. And then you did. There were 2.
Oh, I walked outside, and I was like, what have I done? And they ran out and they said, that was amazing. You did a really good job.
Hey,
so my head was just like screwed now. I'm going, what have I done? I got no idea what's happening here.
Welcome to the world of drama.
Yeah. So, and they said. And then I got a recall. I didn't get in that year, and then I went off and I was going to do a Chippy's apprenticeship, and then I just decided I'd audition again and got in the second year.
Did you do the same piece because you know?
No, I didn't. I actually worked and did it properly, and they actually said to me, "You're not going to get in," and then I got in. And
how many years was that? How many years in?
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty hardcore.
It was. I think at that time in my life, it's exactly what I needed, because I felt like with all the work that you do through drama school and stuff like that, you actually have to drop in to what's going on, to your emotion and to your feeling, and be okay with that. Like, be okay with anger and being in a feeling of anger, and because it was very method based, the school I went through. So you spent the whole first year of actually just understanding emotion and understanding what that is, how that feels in your body, all that type of stuff. And I think that was kind of like the first part of my regenerative journey, I suppose, in a way. It's just sort of working and having that time to be able to work on myself as a young man, to kind of understand what, because, I think like country kids as well, you just find that where, like, be fearful of anger, or anger is something that you should be shameful of, or whatever. And so like all of that, I came with all that baggage into that room, and then to have the freedom to be able to cry on cue, learn how to cry, like learn how to access your anger or your fear or your vulnerability. It was like, I think it sort of put me in good stead for the rest of my life. Was
it kind of liberating? Like you can.
Oh yeah.
It was a kind of release, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's sort of like I think farming in a lot of ways, like it's quite, I don't know how to say it, like safe or conservative in some ways, and then to be able to go to a place like that where you are liberated, you can sort of feel into however you wanted to. You could play characters and all this kind of stuff, and actually tap into yourself. It was really good. Like, that's where I found yoga. I found meditation through certain practices through the school. I met a whole lot of people that I wouldn't have met in Central Queensland. So
I was going to say, what do they reckon about somebody ringer from the top end turning up there?
Oh,
we'd have been the only country boy. Well, no.
I wasn't the only country boy, but I was the most. A lot of them had done work. They'd sort of been working actors or
done something at school,
professional shows and stuff like that. So I was kind of like a cowboy, just coming in.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I was a bit of a disruptor.
Lanky piece of pelican shit turning up there. Hello.
Just a disruptor in some ways, but
but that was probably, your contribution was probably enormous.
Possibly.
Given you're a bit of an outlier, that would have pushed them in some way as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think for me though, it was just really good. I really like those pressure situations where I'd get myself into this place where like I've got to go on stage. I've never been on stage. I've got to get in front of people. And then I'd get an absolute chewing from one of the acting coaches going, "Mate, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong." And then I'd freak out, and then I'd be like, "Okay, let's go again."
Pull it together.
Yeah. And then by third year, it sort of started to all find its way, and it all started to land for me, sort of what acting was, which was really good. Yeah.
Did you new chapter in your life? That just for listeners too, where the highway is particularly noisy today. Because I've just interviewed many times here. It's really, maybe it's the wind coming across there. So I'm sorry everyone if there's that sort of roar in the background there. Not sure if Fareesh can do much with that. So where was I going?
I'd also still go home every holiday to work,
yep.
and do the work at home and sort of connect back with my roots, because I felt that was really important as well, just to not get too caught up in the world of, I don't know, like the acting world, I suppose, or that kind of, artistic kind of world. And I'd go home and I'd get on a horse and I'd go mustering.
Get grounded again.
Get grounded, yeah.
What did your mum and stepdad think about you down there, bloody yahooing and probably having too good a time?
Mum loved it because she was sort of that way inclined. And my dad was also part of film, like the whole kind of 80s revolution in 70s, 80s revolution in film in Australia, like in Brisbane. Yeah, he was
Your dad?
My dad,
Okay.
He was a gaffer, like used to do lighting and also location scout, and then a couple other things.
So any movies that spring to mind that he worked on in those years? Any?
He's got a heap of old roles, and we've still got all the old sort of canisters of the films that he sort of worked on and stuff like that. There was a Hugo Weaving film that he worked on. I can't remember the name, but so Dad was just like, don't do it. To a degree, don't do it.
He was trying to send you.
Yeah, he was just like, just don't do it.
Why do you think that? Because there was no money in it. There was dead end. What was the?
Yeah, I think he just saw it as, he said, just do something safe. There's no security in it. There's no, it's a hard road. So he just sort of didn't see the value in it. Yeah.
But I don't see you as that kind of guy, safe kind of guy.
No, well, I wasn't at that stage in my life, and also, like my stepdad, he was okay with it, but he was totally confused. He had no idea. And I used to have this old ringer used to come out home. His name's Jimmy Sue. Who's like
Jimmy Sue.
Jimmy Sue. He was half Chinese, but he put an E on the end of his name, so no one knew that he was half Chinese. But
did he look half Chinese?
No, he didn't, because he was so wrinkled from the amount of sun that he'd had through the 40s and 50s. You couldn't really, but you could see it a little bit. But he used to come out all the time. Like, he used to go mustering with me. He used to give me knives, guns, all that kind of stuff. He goes, "What do you want to do? Become Keith Ledger?"
Keith Ledger.
He was
Jimmy Sue.
Jimmy Sue, yeah.
Jimmy Sue.
He used to tell us stories about how he used to ride 40 miles to get into a fight.
Just for the hell of it.
Yeah, because he used to work sort of north of Charters Towers and that kind of country, and that country is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Rough cattle country. Yeah, he taught me a lot about sort of cattle and things like that. Yeah.
So did you go home and do performances for mum and dad?
No way.
Little renditions.
No, I'd put on my tutu and sort of dance around and stuff. I used to do that down at the dam when I'd get the ball. No. Just pumping water up to the house.
That's fantastic. So you're clearly keeping grounded. So finished the degree or the course.
Yep.
And what practical stuff happened then? Like, as in,
a
few gigs on stage, film.
So you finish drama school thinking the world is your oyster.
Yeah.
And then you get a reality check when you step out into that world.
What happened?
I showcased really well you showcased down in Sydney in front of a number of agents. and I showcased quite well, and I got quite a good agent, and then the audition process started happening.
So when you say showcase, you what do you actually got to perform a bit?
Yeah, you got to perform. You perform like a piece on stage. Okay. I actually wrote my own, sort of turned a story around about Saddle Bronc rider, and it was actually from the sister's point of view, and I turned it around from his point of view, and I did a monologue down there. Yeah, so. So you go down there, you showcase, your chops in front of a mob of agents, and then you wait by your phone.
Is that right?
They call, yeah.
And you do other work, like you do bar work or something?
Yeah, I never wanted to work in a bar. Like I worked in a bar in Brisbane for a little bit, and I just didn't want to be indoors, so I was doing some landscape gardening while auditioning.
In Sydney?
Yeah. So I've worked a little bit in construction in Brisbane as well, so it was an easy transition for me just to find work down there. And I started doing landscaping, and then ended up sort of running jobs.
So, and then when did you? Was there a point at which, I don't know, low point, high point, hit the big time? Was there sort of a point along there that where you went, this is for me, or no? What was sort of the next sort of significant little corrections or not? Yeah,
so I found that initially coming out of drama school, getting an agent and just auditioning, I was getting back-to-back auditions for a lot of stuff and enjoying it. So that was quite a high for me. And then I just went through a big lull where I was like, I got stuck. I'd never lived in Sydney before. It's a lot faster than what Brisbane is.
Red!
There's your hound.
Hello!
Yeah, and it's quite... Yeah, it's a faster pace. Just trying to figure out living arrangements where we're living. I also moved down with my wife now. So it's just sort of navigating all of that, and also the world of acting, and sort of getting really immersed in the kind of creative world in Sydney. So I just sort of went through a stage where I was like, it was great for a while, and then it was like, plateaued for a while, and then I got the role on How's That, and that was kind of the first sort of real television sort of thing that I'd sort of done. And
is that where you met Damon?
Yes, yeah, that's where I met Damon. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So,
what was he like? He won't listen to this.
It's what goes on tour.
He was young and needed the money.
And then I sort of realised that, from that point, you kind of do a lot of standing around as an actor or doing film. I love stage, and I love doing stage stuff. But as a film actor, it's a lot of standing around. They get the camera set up, you get in there, you do your thing, and then they have to quickly move on.
And then you go and wait for the next bit.
And I really loved watching the directors and, the crew sort of hustling around there. So I sort of helped out a bit after that sort of film. After that experience, I sort of got more back into the crew side of things, and was helping a bit, like helping lighting, doing lighting, or sort of a bit of camera stuff, and then I got into a bit of directing and stuff. So yeah.
So you directed a couple of movies, didn't you? Films?
A couple of little short films.
Do you call them movies or films?
I don't know. Depends how sort of wanky you want to be.
Oh, it's more wanky.
No, I like film.
I like when people the old time say film.
I like film. Yeah.
Film?
Yeah.
Say film.
Film.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, sounds better.
Yeah, it does. I like film. I like calling them films. But I sort of directed a couple of shorts that sort of I was really passionate about trying to tell country stories as well. So it was always around, either the location. I actually shot one at Burra. So,
you did tell me. Now, what was that one called?
That was called Shooter. It was about mental illness and
Because that was a Burra one. Can you remember what property you're at?
No, I can't. No.
Someone from Bora will tell me. How long ago was that?
So I think 2004, 15, 16.
Fair dinkum.
16, yeah.
I'm going to look that up. Whose place? Was it? You remember which way out of Bora?
Yeah, we went, it's hard now, but you go straight, you don't turn right.
When you're going from Yass, like going north?
To your place?
Yeah.
You just go straight down that road. I'm pretty sure it was down that one.
Up in the hills a bit more.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember. It was just all a blur out there, but yeah.
It is a bit out there.
It's nice.
Towards Reed Flat.
I like Bora.
Good spot. Anyone doesn't know, I'm from Bora. And if you don't know what Bora is, how dare you?
Yeah, seriously.
So that would have been certainly a high point.
Oh,
it would have been
absolutely.
just downhill from there.
Yeah, it was gone. No, that was it. So, yeah, and then
You road shooter though, yeah? Is that right?
yeah.
And what was that? I mean, why? Was it a?
I had a lot, I had some close mates, sort of just out of school, sort of kill themselves, and it was kind of, I think it was a process of me trying to figure that out, I suppose, in a way, and just sort of addressing that in some respects. So, it's a problem in regional areas.
These were regional friends of yours,
yeah. Sort of like I think I have had sort of four mates sort of kill themselves. From regional areas.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just kind of, I think it was just trying to work that out for myself in a way, and actually writing about something that that mattered to me as well. Yeah.
And you obviously, you've been from the land, you can't understand the pressures and the strains and the nuances of living in the country. And
yeah, I think it's a lot, there's a lot of silence out there, and I think that sort of that. Yeah, I think that's the thing. There's a lot of stillness and silence, and I think you take that on board a lot. And a lot of people just don't talk about how they're feeling, talking about what's going on, and have fear around talking about what's going on. So I was just trying to, put that into a film.
Just on that, and it is a really, I won't say a wonderful topic, but it's a really important topic. What is, because it's everywhere, but it does seem to be exacerbated somewhat in rural communities, and I think you're probably right there, a bit of isolation. Is there any, given your experience with that or your understanding and this being sort of a way for you to reconcile it, what is there any, that door's about to get you, is there anything you can suggest to people listening that, if that they might do or think about, or I don't know, any tips around it, or the organisations you know of, or or just sort of digging into that topic a bit?
We can dig further into that. My dad actually, he killed himself in the start of 2020 as well. So I know there's I think there's Black Dog, which is a good one, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think now that I've actually experienced it pretty firsthand with my dad,
Can't get much closer than that.
I don't think there's much. I don't know. I just think it's sort of changed my whole perspective on what suicide is as well, in a way, and sort of made me think deeper about the programming around it and things like that. Like my dad, he was a Vietnam veteran, came back, he was 18 or whatever, when he was 19, when he went over, came back with PTSD, didn't know what that was, spent a lifetime trying to deal with it. At the end of the day, it just sort of got too much for him. And it's probably the wrong thing to say, but I've got to this point where I can, in this circumstance, I can just respect his decision. I can sort of, and that's the only way that I can reconcile with that and sort of justify his decision as well, as sort of actually accepting it and just going, look, it was his choice. And that's why I kind of also like to use the phrase of he killed himself rather than suicide, because it's sort of, It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I just listened to a podcast this morning with Ryan Holiday and Jocko Willink. You know, he's special forces. Ryan is a stoic. He's written plenty of books. You'd love them actually about stoic philosophy. And Jocko Willink, he was a special commander, you know, special forces guy. He's written some fantastic books, and they talked about reconciliation or reconciling with oneself as to their situation, you know, and that being a choice, and that being, you know, no one, as you said, no one can take that away from you because no one is standing in that person's shoes, you know.
And also, this is just my personal experience with this as well, and it's not at all, you know, everyone has their own experience with this kind of thing, so I don't want to come across that it's sort of, you know, a new way of looking at it, but you know, it's just out of my own experience. But yeah, there is, I think, and you know, that also kind of made me make some decisions. You know, I've got a lot to be thankful and a lot of gratitude around you know, my dad's passing and stuff like that, because I don't think that I would have been able to, for one, I wouldn't be here in this spot, in this location with, you know, talking to you, because it was sort of like a transition for me into and a time for me to really ask some hard questions about sort of what I was doing with my life, why I was doing it, you know, who am I serving, you know, is it all about ego, film stuff, or why am I doing it? So it really made me sit back, and when it first happened, I just said, I had a lot of, you know, I was doing a bit of script editing for some stuff that I was looking to get up, and film stuff that I was looking to get up, and I just said no to it all. I just went, look, I'm just walking away from this at this point in time, and by this stage in our life, my wife Candice and I, we had two boys. We were living down the Southern Highlands, and I was back into farm management down there. So I was sort of looking after a number of different places down there of different sizes and things like that. And it was, you know, I just said no to all that film stuff, and then just, you know, walked out to the paddock and just spent a lot of time sort of with myself, you know, out there and doing things, yeah.
What did that mean? What did it do for you to have spent that time to go into the paddock? What were you trying to do?
I think I was trying to categorize things. I think I was trying to figure out, like, I just asking a lot of questions, and also just taking the pressure off as well. You know, taking the pressure off having to achieve, having to be something that, you know, I thought that I wanted, and to realize, you know, like, I had some serious realizations around sort of why I was doing film, and a lot of it was just to say up yours to my dad, to say, yeah, it can be done, I can do this. And then once I actually named that, I was able to let it go and just have a clean break from it, and just sort of not be attached to it in a way. I realised that a lot of it was to do with my ego, and a lot of it was to do with me needing to be seen in some way. So, you know, once I was able to sort of name that actually, and sort of walk away from that kind of part of my life, it just opened a door. It just sort of gave me room to actually explore and be open to, you know, where I go to next. And that's when I sort of, I saw Damon down in, I think he came down to Bowral with 2040.
Oh yeah.
And I saw him down there, and I just sort of started to look into all the regenerative kind of farming practices and things like that. And, you know, I had a chat with him about it, and, you know, he told me some of these, like, pretty inspiring stories, and said that I should get in contact with you. And then that sort of made me still there?
Yeah.
that made me like pick up some books, listen to some podcasts.
In 2020.
Yeah, like this was 2020. Yeah, so like by that stage I was already kind of trying to figure out what to do in the paddock, like regeneratively, sort of, because also 2019, 2020 there was not much grass around. It's pretty dry. Fires. It was pretty apocalyptic down the Southern Highlands anyway, and so I was sort of asking all those questions as well about sort of how to transition into regenerative farming and what to do, and that's when I picked up the reed warbler, stuff like that, and just inspired me. Like, and going back to the reason I left farming in the first place was because of drought, and then to realise that there's all these kind of new ways to manage land to actually try and hold on to moisture or look after your grasses for as long as you can to get yourself through drought. That was just mind blowing.
And why? Because you could have. What was the step into the push or the pull into regenerative? Because you could have just decided to do a better job at farming, conventional farming, whatever. Or had you always had a bit of a hankering for a different way of doing it?
Mum always wanted to go organic, so we had our next door neighbour. They have 70,000. They did have, well, they still do 75,000 acres next door to us up at Emerald, and they were organic in the 90s, early 90s. So, so there were people doing it, and also I think I've heard you talk about it on the podcast a little bit, and other people have spoken about it. It's like Candace, my partner, she kind of just sort of lit something up. I think it's like that kind of guidance. There's a lot of guidance from her.
So the conversations she was having, or her buying habits, or
her conversations, and also I think instinctually she just knew there was a better way.
Mate, she's a woman.
Yeah.
They kind of get.
It's hard to take sometimes.
It's hard for men to admit that.
But yeah, look, I think just in her intuition around it and stuff like that, and which kind of opened up, because I was also very, it's hard to do in this area. You got fluke, you got all this kind of stuff going on, and I don't know how to get around that. And you look at all the problems, but rather than looking what kind of solutions are out there. So, and I think that's a trait a lot of farmers have as well. It's always sort of looking at the problems. So that was it, really, sort of, and just being inspired by reading certain books and stuff like that. And
any other? I'll ask you. So Highlands managing. What were it's an interesting situation to be in, that you are helping manage some farms down there, and you what do you say to the owners who are going, hey, who may or may not be used to conventional sort of throwing super out and drenching sheep with normal drenches, and you turn up with, I don't know, some crazy stuff and talking about,
well,
what are they did you get the sack, or did they go, wow, you're crazy, that's cool?
No, it was I think down there, it's quite a specific area down the Highlands. And I can talk from my experience down there, but I feel like it's been heavily influenced by sort of dairy down there, with the amount of super that goes out and all that kind of stuff. And I think that there's a lot of people who are trying to do good things down there, just with farming in general, but they've still got this kind of stigma of you need that, you need this, you got to do this. And also it's a melting pot where a lot of wealthy people from Sydney move out, they buy land and stuff like that. So they're looking for guidance in some way, and it's kind of you got to be quick to get in there first, to sort of, because they're buying a property without having much knowledge about farming and stuff like that. And so those first initial conversations are quite important, and sort of how you action a lot of that stuff as well, but it was quite tough sometimes to have those conversations, and a lot of the time it just would lead to a dead end and nothing would happen.
So did then you just go I'm gone, I'm out of here?
I'd kick a lot of dirt in the paddock and swear,
Yeah.
just go and throw sticks. But at the end of the day, it's their decision, and also one of the places that I was working at, he'd actually been burnt by someone who'd actually gone in there and tried to push too hard, and went, just drop everything. We're just gonna, and just got the place into a really bad state. So
because he'd gone too far the other way.
Far, yeah. So, and also he hadn't had, there wasn't much water around. They'd lost cattle and things like that. So he was very hesitant to go back in.
Sure.
But I found a lot of the other, a couple of the other places. One particular, he was interested in what I had to say, but it wasn't until his granddaughter sent him through a link of something that he was actually keen to make changes.
You'd warmed him up a bit, though,
Probably, yeah, just a little jab under the ribs or something. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And then what happened then? That was last. Well, I met you. Damon actually got us in touch.
Yeah.
You came along to a
biodynamic course.
Biodynamic workshop down there in. When was it last year? September.
Yeah, at your place.
It was too.
Yeah. Went to one at your place, and then I went.
You went to the
follow up.
But in the Highlands there. That's right. Yeah. Biodynamic workshop. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like. Well, I like. I suppose I like the planetary alignment stuff. And I like that sense that you're doing something, but you're doing something in the paddock, but you're also aligned planetary with stuff that's going on outside of your control in a way. It's a deep rabbit hole, so still trying to sort of get my head around it a little bit, but I see the value, definitely see the value in it.
Well, we got Oliver. Oliver's actually featured quite a few times in my interviews here, because last two times I've sat, he's driven past and he's bugged. I must have done another one at some point, not that long ago. Anyway, Marcus Pierce, that's right. And so he must just go, I'm going to just drive past in the buggy and make a noise.
Start doing donuts in the grass.
So smoking the bags down. His chickens escaped last night, apparently.
Yeah, they did.
Can we tell that to everyone?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
They're back. They're back under supervision, surveillance. And he's sort of come in and out of a few of the workshops we did. And we on Friday, what's the day? It was Monday. Was it Monday?
Monday.
Yeah, Monday. And we dragged the tractor out. We dragged the tank, rigged it up, got the flow form going, still just around the corner there. And he did 500 litres or something. And he just banged it out on Monday night. Burned her out, putting the biodynamics out.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Which I'd been a couple of years since I did it. I'd burned around in the veggie garden down there with the same tank, different tractor, and just went nuts, sprayed it everywhere. People didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be something that we'll do a lot more of here, I'd say, just to sort of.
I hope so, mate.
We'll see what goes and see what happens.
Well, if Oliver's as keen as he is, I'm sure he'd be the man. Just go, mate. Just do a little paddock down there. Jump on, go nuts.
He's keen.
Throw him a few those Portuguese tarts in there in a restaurant or something. bait him a bit.
Yeah, just get him out there. Yeah.
Just get him out there. Oh, he was loving it. It's fantastic. So, mate,
he was drenched. He was like came back and told me
because we had a pretty good rig up on there. We found an elbow and we put the nozzle on the thing. And so for those listeners who aren't familiar with biodynamics, it's a water soluble, I guess, fertilizer is the way I'd probably put it to the layman. But it's made from cow manure and a few other cool things. And Oliver was spraying it all over the place. So yeah, it's an open cab, and he got wet. But you know what? He'd grow half a foot next day if he's absorbed it all, he soaks it all in.
That's it. That's why I think that's why all his hen has chased him back. still wearing 500.
He is. He's a machine. So, mate, back to you. Well, Oliver's he features far too often. Highlands. BD Workshop, Burrawa.
Yep. Yeah, and I think for me it was just really exciting to find these new practices, you know, like that's, and just to be excited, you know, to get excited about that stuff as well, about, you know, biodynamics, and also our boys are going through the Steiner system as well, so, you know, like that's just really another, you know, offset of what Rudolf Steiner's kind of doing. So it kind of made sense to sort of do a workshop like that. But also, there's just so much good stuff out there now. Like in Australia, people doing amazing things around Australia with regenerative farming, and it's just really exciting, I think, with all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Have you got any favourite practices or sort of, you know, or any you know, any nuggets of gold that you sort of stumbled upon in the last, I don't know, 12 months that have really got you thinking, you know, differently?
Definitely around the soil stuff, I think is just an eye opener, and also like understanding plants a little bit more. I've just recently done the RCS kind of farming and grazing for profit, to understand sort of like how you can actually manage your grass so the soil's getting the most benefit, but also the animal is as well. So that's, you know, a lot of stuff around that was really interesting. I think, and they've got a great way of kind of sort of running their workshop, running the course as well. You know, they sort of, you kind of go through the financial stuff to actually then make a astute decision about sort of which way the choices you can make, and they actually then give you solutions when needing to make those choices, which is sort of a great thing.
And it's not really. Sorry, you
No.
go.
I'm trying to think of other stuff. I think Peter Andrews stuff is quite interesting as well. You know, like around water. You know, and not trying. I think, you know, we've got this sort of need to try and hold on to everything all the time, like hold on to our water, you know, hold on to cash in the account or whatever. But if you let it all flow, it sort of makes more sense to it'll sort of help in the long run. And it's sort of, you just got to let that energy kind of move. I think also, like, one thing that I really enjoy is I like with RCS and Terry McCosker and that about the energetics of things. You know, and I think there's a lot around the energetics that's sort of, it's an interesting space. You know, I think it's something that there's so much more room, you know, to grow in that area, I think.
So subtle energy kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think like just understanding the energy, like it actually, I think for me, my personal take on it is with the subtle energy and the energetics of a place, and sort of tapping into that to actually kind of feel what needs to happen in certain areas, and I think it comes back to more instinct rather than actually pragmatic thinking in some ways. So it's sort of that sort of resonated with me. I know it's not something that you can kind of hold on to, but it's just nice to know that it's there, I suppose.
It's another layer of, I wouldn't call it a tool, but it's certainly just another layer of potentially, you know, if used well, of building confidence in a decision, or, you know, kind of, I just think it's so underrated. I mean, it's so hardly talked about. You don't go to the pub and go, hey, I was talking to the kangaroos, right, negotiating for them to just like leave my property except for one little mob can stay there.
There's a take a drink, get outside.
That's it. Yeah, no,
shut the door quietly.
That's it, and never return. But it's when you, but it's the end. But if you say those things towards the end of the night, it's interesting how people come up to you and go, hey, you know, you said about this kangaroo. You know, they start when they've had a few groggs and they get curious about it, and then they're asked about this.
I also feel like we all have a relationship with the land in some way. You know, like I think as a kid growing up in the bush or whatever, you form a relationship with the land. So I think you're kind of halfway there, but you just, I think, you know, I denied it for a long time. You know, but you know, there's something there.
So when was whether it was a moment or a period of your life where you stepped into that relationship with it? Was there a catalyst for that?
I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Yeah, dang it. Where was that?
I did it up in the Sunshine Coast, Hinterland.
When was that?
In 2008 or 2009. And I think I had that experience. You meditate for many hours a day, and then you actually go walking in the bush and stuff like that as well. And
No talking.
no talking. I saw a big snake and I cursed once because it scared me. And I looked around to make sure no one heard.
It was like day 9.5. Nah, sorry, get out.
Yeah,
You failed.
You failed. And then you just walk through nature there, and I think like that you realise that there's something else about that tree's alive, or there's some life there. I think that was maybe, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but that was kind of like where I think I found that. And also being out in the Channel Country, like there's it's pretty amazing that 2 weeks it can be completely dry, and then we used to hear when the water used to, the Diamantina, when the water used to hit the main road that goes from Winton through to Boulia, it used to take 2 weeks for the water to get to us. And then
because it'd be literally trickling down the channels all the way, finding its way. What direction was it heading?
south.
South.
Yeah, and then you just, like, within 3 weeks you're an ocean. You're just surrounded by water, and it was just, I think like that, that sort of triggered something in that country, because there's a real stillness out there as well. But yeah, it's quite special. But yeah, I think that's kind of that made me realise that there's something, and that land out of Australia is quite ancient, and that country feels really ancient as well. And there's dinosaurs around and stuff.
Still.
Yeah, well, there's like fossils and yeah.
I like to believe that there are stuff. There's still stuff out there we would be exasperated to find. It's still, I don't know. That would be really cool. I reckon there's Tasmanian tigers in Tassie. I hope so.
You reckon?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it'd be awesome. I'm a bit of a believer in yowies and that sort of thing. Bunyips. Is there any bunyips up there?
No, my youngest, me actually. He reckons there's bunyips, and he reckons there's a dinosaur outside his window.
Well, it's funny because Lordy goes around looking for fossils in the garden.
Yeah, right.
That's his thing. He's looking for fossils. I think it's just beautiful. You've mentioned the word silence a couple of times, which is really, which is great, because I think, because it, I don't know, is silence, can silence be good and bad, or you know what I mean? Like, is there good silence and bad silence from a farming kind of, country farming life kind of perspective? Because the way you've sort of used it in different parts of what we talked about has been interesting.
There's definitely, I think there's a balance. I think individually we kind of know, well, individually I know when I need silence, and then when that silence isn't probably, or that stillness is sort of, its use by date is up, and then I actually feel like I need to transition into a different energy or something like that. Yeah. And I think that's something, like with my personal journey through, I'm not like an avid meditator. I don't meditate every day. I try and do a little bit, 5 to 10 minutes a day when I remember, or something like that. But I think I think that's, I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's the journey. That personal journey for me has been really important, to find out how much silence I need.
What's you? It's your time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably a few minutes in the day where it's you. Apart from when you're asleep, when you're probably not there anyway.
Yeah.
You're astrally travelling.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing.
And it's just a good time to connect with. I find it's always just a really good time to connect with what's going on for me, even if it is 5-10 minutes, just to go, right, this is how I'm feeling today, or whatever. But sort of, makes me a better person. Otherwise,
I've no doubt. I heard a great expression, I can't remember who from, years ago, and it was it's something that really resonated with me. Was, it's I often feel alone but never lonely. You know, there's a difference between, you know, especially when I was a younger buck, you know, at home at Burra, not married, you know, tomcatting in Sydney, but working hard all week, and there'd be people there, but there was times when, you know, you would be by yourself, and it was just fantastic. Weekends, didn't see anyone, and there was a sense of being alone, but I was never lonely, you know.
Yeah.
Which I'm grateful for, because I imagine that can be, you know, there would be a sense of being lonely, you know, for some people, you know, depending on personality, how, you know, geographically how isolated they are. It can be a really confronting thing, I guess, from a mental health point of view. That can be quite challenging for people, you know, whether it's that they've got a personality, they need people around, or they're just going through a tough time and they just don't have that support, you know.
Yeah, sure.
What next, Andy?
Well, I don't know.
Where do we get to?
Well,
Highland, you're in the Highlands.
I'm in the Highlands. Yeah.
You're reading books.
Reading books.
You're throwing sticks at bloody property owners who didn't listen to you.
Well, not physically. I was throwing sticks.
You're opening gates onto the road.
I was opening gates. Yeah, just
causing havoc.
Yeah, I was there. I felt like I needed a change. So actually, I felt like I was getting frustrated with sort of things not moving in the right direction. And I think I heard Terry McCosker say somewhere, or it might have been in the book, that he, you know, like, this is my own words, but like standing on your apple box yelling, you're not going to really make much change, you know. So you only try and convert the converted. So I thought I'd sort of, you know, just try and find somewhere that I could land where they were interested in this management, you know, different ways of managing and the regenerative way of sort of managing places and stuff like that. So I quit a couple of jobs down there, and just let that sit for a bit. And then I saw the opportunity arise up here at the farm, and sent a text to you.
That's right.
So you're
what did you say? You know, these people
you'll get in trouble if I don't. Well, I said, are you up the farm? I said, you know what's going on up at the farm at the moment? I didn't even know you were up here.
Yeah.
At that point in time, so.
What did I say? You said, I'm looking for a thing, and I was going to say, no, they're not. No.
It's like,
not for you.
Said, just keep away. No, there's nothing.
Prank call.
Yeah, prank call.
So then you apply.
Well, no, I think you sort of reached out for me, actually.
I might
have
given Fraser a nudge.
Yeah, you're the culprit. It's your fault.
It's my fault. Was it a good thing?
Yeah.
Not so much what I did, but you moving up here.
Absolutely, yeah. It's I think we were kind of also calling it in as well. We've got family around this area. My mum's got a organic garlic farm up at Tennerfield.
That's right.
And my mother-in-law, she's out sort of Nimbin way, so it sort of made sense for us to move up closer to family. And yeah, it's like this. There's a really good opportunity here to sort of create, you know, add on to what's going on up here. And I think there's like the community itself. It's really receptive. You know, it's the right sort of community to sort of to get behind something like this as well.
It's an interesting combination, isn't it? Because it's you know, reasonably, you know, it's a bit of land for up here, right on the edge of town, Byron Bay, with, you know, various different enterprises. And for someone with your experience, I imagine that would be just, I don't know about dream job, but it's certainly, you know, there is a lot of scope here, I think.
It's up there, yeah. No, it's definitely aligned with a lot of the stuff I'd like to do, you know, that I'm wanting to do and things like that. So, yeah, it's definitely a great opportunity and a bit of a dream job, yeah.
And as you started the interview there, Andy, you know, just in terms of, I guess the opportunity and kids coming here. I mean, I saw a little sign just around there. The kids, where is it? Kids club. The farm kids. You know, schools coming here. I mean, obviously not at the moment, but it is. You know, and I think it has got a huge potential, which we will work on in the future.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like we've bought up here now, land up here and stuff. So we're pretty set in the community. So yeah, it's good. It's really nice.
What else, mate? What other training have you done that you think was, set you up for where you are, for not geographically, but just where your mind is now? Is there any other sort of training you did that was personal development type stuff, or things you can tell us about?
Look, I think that's probably on the spot a bit. I think a lot like the Vipassana meditation was a big one. I think drama school was like, I think that was the first paradigm shift for me in a lot of ways as well. It's like to actually see, and that helped me sort of be open to a different way of seeing things, looking at things. I think like sort of being around a lot of different people with different views, different opinions about the world and stuff like that. So that sort of opened me up a lot in a lot of ways. Yeah. I don't know about other training.
Or any tips?
No tips.
Any tips for? I mean, everyone's story is unique, but is there any sort of, I don't know, if there were some tips you could give people, what would they be in terms of, okay, I'll make it easy for you, or maybe harder for you. Tips for a younger Andy.
Oh.
If you could have the chat with, I don't know, the fellow who came back from the ringer from the top end.
I'd say go off and be a ringer from the top end. That was it's a lot of fun when you're young. I'd just be like, courage is a big one. I think that's a word that comes up for me, or being brave, and then also, being open-hearted and vulnerable, I think, as well. There's a lot of strength in vulnerability, which I think gets missed. And it takes a lot for someone to actually be vulnerable and be open. This is actually not me talking, this is Candace. But it takes a lot, for someone to actually be open, be vulnerable, and there's a real power in that, I think. Like, if you can actually, it'll help other people be less guarded, I feel like, as well. I think it gives everyone the opportunity to then sort of sit in that and creates a safe space. So,
and women are generally better than that, a bit better than us at that, aren't they? They seem to be a little less reserved about, or worry about what people will think, because it's more in their nature to be a bit more honest about it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think with, obviously men would, I'd rather go and throw a stick than actually show someone that I'm angry.
Is angry? Do you stomp on your hat?
I try not to.
Have you?
Oh, I have.
Have you thrown on the ground and stomped on it?
I've thrown it on the ground and I've ridden over it on my horse.
There you go.
That was
I have not tried that. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, and then get angry with my horse because my horse was shying at the hat.
It's just endless.
This was 19 as well. Yeah.
So anger, that's a good one. And vulnerability, like, is being angry okay? I mean, is that a sign of being vulnerable, as opposed to maybe throwing a stick at? I mean, there's angry throwing a stick, but then there's also like, how do I actually express my anger in a positive way, in a useful way?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I think there's vulnerability in anger when it's being witnessed. And you're actually okay. This is my take on it anyway. You're okay with actually exposing yourself in that moment. That's actually you being vulnerable.
It's being truthful too.
Being truthful, being vulnerable, and also I find that I just lost my train of thought. But I just feel like with that anger or that frustration, it's an emotion and it's going to pass. Like, you're not going to get stuck in anger. And like, we also, like, with our kids and stuff like that, we try and get them to see the full arc of what anger is and actually see resolution rather than just seeing
sitting in anger.
So then they can actually see that there's another side of that feeling. So that's a big one for us as well.
I think anger's also I guess it's a symptom of fear in a way, isn't it? It's fear of something. It's so there's a that's the way I look at it too. I don't generally get too angry. I probably should get more angry a bit more often. I don't know. One of those things.
I think it also it's hiding something else. So there's obviously something you can go deeper into. So like if there's anger on the surface, there's something that's sometimes connected to fear or whatever it is. But it's you can actually, if you're willing to go deeper into what that is. Yeah, am I talking about this? And I'm hungry.
Oh yeah, mate, you're pretty highly qualified, I've got to say. The other one that just came to mind was also that we can't be responsible. We can't be responsible for other people's reactions and / emotion, because often we see their reaction is a visible emotion that we see. That if we're being vulnerable, if we're speaking our truth, and we're being courageous in that moment, sometimes harsh things have to be said, or things that come across as harsh, and people can be affronted or be it can be potentially a point of conflict that sometimes has to happen, and it's like, you know what, hands in the air, because if we don't, and I used to do that a lot, I probably still do it a bit, is I'd be worried more about the person, how they would react. I wouldn't actually instigate the situation, which probably had to happen, that would then potentially have them react that way, and it was like, it's just easy not to say it. Because I don't want to deal with that.
Comes back with conflict, doesn't it?
But it just doesn't get resolved. That's it. It's a fear of, and then I just, it stays in your body and turns into something else, which is not very healthy.
No, turn into cancer or something like that.
That's it.
Yeah.
No, totally. Bad shit. We can't be doing that. What else? Oh yeah. So what? So that was tips for the younger Andy. Any other tips for sort of transitioning farmers? Because you've had quite an interesting journey, that you weren't, when you were farming when you were little, I guess what I'm saying, in the country, did you step up north and you had a fairly bit of a break away from it? Is it, what tips for transitioning farmers? I mean, because
well, my experience from it is there's a lot of things that you're probably doing on your farm now that isn't too far off, the changes that need to be made. Like for us, we were set stocking and stuff like that, but we actually had our carrying capacity or our numbers so that pretty bang on, so that we wouldn't actually flog the country out too much. And we're actually looking at our rest periods back then, which I think a lot of farmers probably instinctually do, but aren't aware of what they're actually doing, I suppose. I don't know. But that's what I thought. Like when I started reading a lot of the books and literature and things like that, it seems there's a lot of practices that you are doing well. There's just like a percentage that kind of just need a little shift or a little change that we're kind of really hooked into as well. That if you just make those kind of readjust those changes, that you readjust those management techniques that are working well, that aren't too different from trying to get away from chemicals and stuff like that. I think that's probably the best step, because I feel I just get overwhelmed. If you look out at the paddock in certain places and just go, well, where do you start?
What do we do there?
Yeah.
I think the overwhelm can often be associated with, like, the old paradigm of being prescriptive. It's like, I've got to go and do this. Whether it's you're looking at your neighbour doing something differently and you want to try it, or you're reading in a book, is actually to go, I'm going to just plant this on my land and do it. That can be quite overwhelming, I think. It's like, how do I emulate that? They've got those results, I want them, but it's really about stepping out pretty slowly, isn't it? And just trying. I think the fact, anyone who's listening to this podcast is probably, as you've just sort of highlighted, they're probably doing some of these things anyway, if they're a landowner.
Like I think, we used to, by managing our paddocks,
Red
little white merino.
Oh, he's got a red collar.
I got a red collar.
Red, sit down.
Yeah, I think we were trying to manage tick through our sort of management of paddocks and stuff like that, rather than having to dip that much. I think there's a lot of things that we were doing that we're doing out of cost really. You can't go out and spray
No.
17,000 acres for Parthenium or something like that.
No.
Or,
It was more a practical approach.
more practical approach, and I think if you're actually coming from that angle, it's not too much of a paradigm shift.
No.
Really, yeah.
And it's even like the word regenerative is reasonably new, and it's sort of taken the world by storm, which is kind of good. But I mean, yeah, a lot of people would be doing these practices anyway, and not just and still doing it, and probably a lot of people doing it now. It's like, oh, that's just why we do it. We are conscious of costs. We are conscious of nature. We are conscious of things that we sort of are more regenerative farmers or farming's all about, but it's just innate, which is wonderful, because the whole thing's just not prescriptive. You right there, buddy? You're gonna eat something. Eat a person.
A tomato.
No, mate, don't eat that mint, because that's what Andy's dog, Rusty, pissed on the other day. That's probably why he likes it there so much. Well, mate, I reckon we're going to wrap it up. I have got a little some questions, some rapid fire questions for you that I'm going to sign out. And if anyone wants to hear the answers to the rapid fire questions, I'm going to ask Andy. Just sign up to our Patreon, kitchen table, around the kitchen table membership platform, where you can hear these answers. We're trying something new. We are asking all of our Patreon members as well for questions that we want to be able to ask each guest consistently, as in the same set of questions, and see what they come up with. Don't be nervous, mate. It's going to be okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
I'll wrap it up, mate. That's been wonderful. It's been a pleasure to sit here at the farm. We've got pigs and binchooks and corellas and dogs. It's been one. I mean, it is a great example of. This is why I come here. I go to people's places and we have the chat on their veranda, because this is inspiring stuff, isn't it? Well, we could be doing it inside somewhere. It's probably echoey and boring, but this is fantastic, and it's a real honour to be part of the farm, and I'm up here often, and just to have such a wonderful place to interview people like you, Andy, and be here and be part of it. It's awesome. And plovers,
we got one mad dorper over there as well.
I saw a couple of sheep over there.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
Yep.
Mate, it's all going on here. It's a menagerie, and they got the Scottish Highlanders down there too. So I've just seen something because they're all bolting down the corner. And those horses there, what are those? They're tiny.
It's a quarter horse.
Quarter horse. It is a quarter horse. It's an 8th horse, mate. Andy's been fantastic. Really appreciate your time on a Friday afternoon, and thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your regenerative journey and being so open and transparent with us, because that's what it's all about. Because it's the stories that my guests like you tell that are clearly resonating with them, and I trust that they see value in that, and they're learning from your life and your experiences, and that's awesome.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, it's good to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.